peaches, it's that time of year, and yes, peaches were popular in the 18th century. Today we're doing a peach tart. This is from a 1787 cookbook called Cookery and Pastry by Susanna Maciver. Thanks for joining us today. So peaches are a bit of an interesting story. They certainly had peaches, especially in England in the 18th century, and you hear them talked about having peach trees in North America in the 18th century, so they're popular. Nectarines they had, in fact, they seem to be earlier than peaches. They also had things like apricots all the time. Most of the time in the recipe books, though, when you see peaches, you see them in preservation techniques. They're always preserving them, putting them in vinegar or sugaring them, all these different ways of preserving peaches. One of the interesting things about this particular recipe, though, is that it's to be used right away, right? Peaches that aren't preserved. And just like today, peaches in the 18th century, they were very, very seasonal. I mean, boy, they are only good for just this very small window, and then they're no good anymore, right? So this recipe actually calls for the peaches to be used in the slightly before ripe context. So this is very different than most of the peach recipes you find in 18th century cookbooks. Okay, now I'm going to confess to you, this is the complete experiment. This particular recipe, we have not done it before, and it maybe is a little tricky. The thing is, though, it's really, really simple, at least ingredient-wise. We have puff paste because it's like a pie tart thing, but it's got peaches and it's got sugar, and that's it. There is nothing else that's called for in this recipe. So it is amazingly simple, but we're not sure exactly how it's going to work out because the instructions, maybe I wouldn't do it this way, or maybe you wouldn't do it this way, but we're going to follow the instructions. We've got a pan here over very, very low heat. And what we're going to do is bring in some sugar. I've got sugar, maybe 1.5 cups of sugar. We're going to put this over the fire right in our pan, really, really low heat. Next up, we have our peaches. We've already got our peaches peeled, obviously, and have them quartered up. I've got 4 peaches here, and I'm going to make sure that they're drained and just put them right into our sugar. Okay, now we're just going to stir these up. I guess if it was, let's say, another kind of recipe completely, it was meat or something, I would call this maybe a ragu, the way that this was going to turn out. Okay, so we've been stirring this up. The moisture really came out of these peaches, and it's made this wonderful thick syrup. I've definitely kept this on sort of medium-low heat here and kept it stirring so it doesn't burn. After about 20-25 minutes, they're starting to soften up just a touch. I think it's ready. She doesn't actually tell us exactly how long to do this or even at what state to stop at, but I'm guessing that we're probably at a good spot. They've changed. They're a little bit more translucent than they were, but they're not so soft they're going to break up at all. So let's get these off the fire and get them to start to cool. Well, our peaches have cooled off and we're ready for the next stage. We're going to put these peaches into our tart tin. You could probably use a pie plate if you want, but this will probably cook a little bit faster. Gonna fill it up to about 3/4 of the way full, not too much. Let's get these arranged so that they're kind of flat in here. I guess I'm just gonna line it 1 deep with these pieces. Top it off with a little bit more of the syrup. That looks really good. And let's go ahead and really, it doesn't take any puff paste in the bottom, but it does on the top. So there we go, and we're just going to punch this down, cut off our excess. There we go. This looks pretty good now. There's no way this is going to seal up perfectly. This will undoubtedly kind of spill out in your oven, so make sure to have a cookie sheet underneath this thing or you're not going to be happy because it'll make a mess. And we're going to cook it 45 minutes to an hour until this puff paste looks good and cooked and nice, brown colored at probably, this typical 350 degrees. Well, our peach tart came out of the oven. It smells wonderful. Kind of had to bust out a chunk here and serve it up because obviously it isn't like a pie. I mean, this really isn't meant to be served like that. It's kind of, in fact, the original recipe talks about cooking it in little petty pans. So maybe it was intended to be sort of single serving little dishes. And the puff paste kind of pulled up and kind of shrank down a little bit and it fought the pan. Maybe we should have left it kind of drape over the top. Maybe with the petty pans that would work even better. But this looks great, smells wonderful. Let's give it a try. Wow, ooh, ooh, what? That is so sugary. Whoa, this is sweet, sweet, sweet. So maybe we didn't need quite so much sugar. Maybe, I mean, she originally calls for unripe peaches, so maybe that would help too. A lot of moisture came out of these peaches. It came out with just a tremendous quantity of liquid, which, you know, we were concerned we weren't going to have enough. Well, we don't. There's no need to worry about that. So tremendous flavor, wonderful. Again, this was an experiment. I mean, a lot of these ones you just have to try it to see how it's going to work out. I wasn't sure how those, you know, those peaches in the pan with the sugar was going to work out. That worked out all right. Tremendous. Whew, excellent. I really want to, you know, thank you for coming along on this experimental one. I mean, they're all experiments in one way or another. This one's got some, a really fun one to try though. And you know, you don't necessarily see these recipes where they're using peaches that are either unripe or ready to go. So this is one that's a little bit different than most of them. Just amazing though. Thank you for coming along as we experiment, as we try these things out, as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century.